Coming to you from a cozy little condo high atop Old 4th Ward, Atlanta. Welcome to The Ron Show on America One Radio. Here's your host, Ron Roberts.
Hello, and thank you for listening on the America One Radio app, AmericaOneRadio.com. We broadcast that 9 to 10 a.m., replay 5 to 6 p.m. weekdays if that's where you'd like to listen. You can also hear this on demand at ProgressiveVoices.com, and of course, on your own time whenever you podcast. So over the weekend, President Joe Biden and his motorcade were in Atlanta, crisscrossing the city and metropolitan area, hitting a few different spots. I know this because I innocently, naively thought I need to run up to the storage unit for my softball league on Briarcliff from Old 4th Ward. Got on the downtown connector, got to the 75-85 split, and Georgia State Patrol said, hold up. All y'all, hold up. Oh my gosh. We're talking at least 15 minutes before anybody started realizing this ain't going anywhere for a while. And it was all for the presidential motorcade. I mean, I ain't mad. Okay, so I kind of am. Or was. Anyway, yeah, I mean, this was supposed to be a 15-minute trip, and it took at least an hour and a half for me to do it round trip. It was, I hate that stuff. And when you look at the stops that Biden made, we're talking little events here and there. It's like, oh my gosh, death by 1,000 cuts or handshakes by 1,000 visits, right? If you're in a swing state and you're trying to win by the narrow margin you know you're going to have to win by, don't mess us up this weekend, man. Anyway, there was a huge Kenny Chesney concert at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, sold out, more than 70,000 folks there. It's Saturday night in Atlanta. You've just got so much going on, and obviously he's in town too, so that means that much more going on. The Braves, they got rained out. Wait, did they get rained out? Yeah, they got rained out Saturday. So that wasn't going to happen. But oh my gosh, that would have been even worse. I mean, because the timing for that would have been, it would have been cataclysmic. But we all stopped and we waited for the presidential motorcade. And we'll get to do it again for two motorcades, not just one, but two motorcades in June. Was it 23rd, 26th? What is the date for the debate? So look forward to 26th. That's right. We said take the 26th off. Just don't, just shelter in place, Atlanta, on June 26th, because you're not going to want to be on the streets. Anyway, the president was in town originally, and we talked with Donnell Suggs last Friday here on the show from the Atlanta Voice, and he didn't let this out on the show, but he told me off the air. He said, I'm hearing that the president's going to be in town Saturday. So he knew, a lot of the media knew that he was going to be in, but we, the general public, obviously weren't made privy to it and weren't able to plan accordingly. Now, I don't know if anybody planned accordingly on Sunday to stay home or avoid the University Center campuses, but it was a little bit of an inconvenience. I'm not going to lie. So anyway, we do have the president's commencement speech. We'll get to that here in just a little bit. I want to start with something I was watching yesterday. You know me. I get up on Sunday mornings and I watch the Georgia Gang. That is on Sundays on the local Fox affiliate, WAGA Fox 5. And they discussed the Morehouse speech. And one of their pundits she makes me shake my head just about every time she's on.
All right, well, I'll have our popcorn out there. And Janelle, President Biden, of course, at Morehouse College Sunday for commencement, but he also made the rounds on Black radio here in Atlanta, telling listeners that former President Trump hurt black people every chance he got, from black unemployment to, quote, his botched COVID-19 response leaving black people dead and black-owned businesses shuttered. Ooh. Let's talk about that assessment.
Well, I mean, it's classic Biden. When I first saw it, I was thinking, just shut up. That was the first thing that came to my mind. But here's the thing. The reason why they keep doing this is because it's working, and it's working for black Democrats. It's not pulling in black Republicans at all. It's repelling us because we're the individuals who believe that we can do all things through Christ. We don't have to have the white man on our neck.
The white man on our neck? What a trope, lady.
Don't believe that we can't get through, or that I have to get permission to be successful in life. And when you make comments like this, it's saying to the black community that The whole concept of working twice as hard to get half as much, the whole concept of the white man has to approve it for you to be successful, all of that stuff is pushing that narrative. And it makes me believe that people are programmed to believe that.
It's not just that people are programmed to believe that. It's that data, facts, history, the history that the right likes to bury. They don't want to talk about critical race. There's a reason why they don't want to talk about critical race theory, because there is a long and storied history. There is a reason that there is a racial income gap, a racial wealth gap. And it's not hocus pocus. It's not make believe. For example, a 2020 article, I believe Donald Trump was president then, from the Society for Human Resource Management wrote, nearly 56 years after the passage of the Civil Rights Act, quote, we find equal pay for equal work is still not a reality, according to Jackson Groover, a data analyst at compensation data and software firm PayScale. Last year, 2019, PayScale analyzed differences in earning between white men and men of color using data from a sample of 1.8 million employees surveyed between January 2017 and February 2019. I'm trying to remember who the president was then. Oh, yeah. Among the findings, Groover reported, even as black or African-American men climb the corporate ladder, they still make less than equally qualified white men. They are the only racial ethnic group that does not achieve pay parity with white men at some level. Continuing, the study found that black men had the largest uncontrolled pay gap relative to white men when comparing the average earnings of black men and white men in the U.S. On average, black men earned 87 cents for every dollar a white man earned. Hispanic workers had the next largest gap, earning 91 cents for every dollar earned by white men. On the other side of the earning spectrum, Asian men typically earned $1.15 for every dollar earned by a white male worker. I will give you this, of course, in the show notes at ronshowatl.com. Let's let Janelle continue with her diatribe.
Because that's why this is working. It's driving people to the polls when he says things like this. It's not about President Trump doing anything singular for the black community. It's about President Trump or any president doing what's necessary for the country, creating opportunity for all of us, and then we can move forward. But when you keep singling us out like this, it's very low vibrational, it's very low level, it makes it seem like we're not intellectual, and we are. We can have business conversations, talk to black people about policy like how you talk to every other white person. I don't get it, but maybe it works. Maybe, Theron, you could explain why he keeps doing this.
Theron, weigh in here.
So first of all, it was a 10-minute interview. All right, so let our viewers know that that was the part that the media decided to focus on, and I'm glad he said it. And I'm gonna tell you why I'm glad he said it. But I encourage people to listen to the 10-minute interview. And Laura, you put a couple of these things on the screen, but he talked about black unemployment insurance rates going up during the Trump administration. Trump's tax plan reinforced discrimination. I mean, these are all things. COVID-19, people were dying, and that was true. Because we had a former president who refused to show just a little bit of ounce of empathy, that people literally were dying, and he refused to follow the science. Now let's get into what Janelle was talking about. Look, I don't have a problem with the president saying what he said, because the president knows what he's about to embark upon, right? You're going over to Morehouse College, and you're going to be talking to some of the best and brightest, Morehouse men and the black men in the country and their families. And so you can't go into that not necessarily focusing on what Trump didn't do. Now what he's got to do, which I think he will do, and he would, by the time we're taping now, we haven't heard the speech, is that he will reinforce the longevity, the consistency, the unwavering support that the Democratic Party has had to black people. And here's my thing: I challenge Republicans. And Laura knows, Janelle, you and Kelvin, y'all went out there and you saw what the Republican base did. The Republican base did not want a credible African-American black man to be their U.S. Senate nominee. So you have work to do. But what we're saying is that until the Republican Party show us and answer these questions that the president opposed, then you're going to continue to see overwhelmingly numbers that they're going to continue to support this Democrat. So I'm totally fine with what he said. And lastly, you got to say it was on V103. You can't go on V103 on the big ticket show and not bring some.
Know your audience.
And I know your audience. And so I think he made news, but I encourage people to listen to it in its totality, because he talked about a lot of other important things as well.
For those that don't know, what Theron is referring to is that Janelle's husband, Kelvin King, ran for the U.S. Senate, but wasn't Herschel Walker. Now, also for those who don't know, a caricature on this dais, almost every Sunday, is Phil Kent. Take a listen to Phil Kent when he's asked to weigh in.
Well, Well, I think it's very divisive. Biden has always pulled this, y'all are going to be put in chains if you vote for Republicans. And, this business of, white man's got you down. This is not the 1950s anymore in Georgia.
Oh, that he wish it were. Where did anybody say? See, the man is a caricature. It's just comical to watch. This is one of the reasons why I like watching, because I kind of giggle when he speaks. I just do. It's silly.
And we've got a lot of opportunity. Janelle pointed that out. Everybody's got a chance at doing something in this country. And so, again, I hope he doesn't continue to pander. I would hope the Morehouse crowd would not buy a lot of this pandering. I think that everybody's an individual and they ought to be talking policy. Both candidates ought to be talking policies. But I think that when Biden is just doing the divisive line, the Democrats try to pit male against female, black against white, Hispanic versus white, this has got to stop. We've got to be more unifying.
I love that Phil Kent wants to talk about us being more unifying when he is on that show on the regular, railing on, the trans community, the LGBTQ+. He calls anybody who doesn't adhere to the Trump MAGA doctrine as radical, liberal, blah, 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 socialism. You want to be unifying? How about you dropping the ad hominem, sir? How about you stop calling people illegals and try to be unifying, sir? The lack of self-awareness with that guy is breathtaking. Janelle had one more swipe.
Okay, I just think it's important to note that the one policy that he's not talking about is funding HBCUs, which is what President Trump did. So while we're all talking about all the wonderful things, he was the only person that released black men out of prison and funded HBCUs while he's at a HBCU. As an HBCU graduate, I'm telling you that is all that he needs to be talking about.
Darren.
What Janelle is trying to get away with, by the way, is an outright lie. It's deception at its worst. I shared this. In fact, we talked about this on this show. I read this before from Medium. Walter M. Kimbrough broke this down. He's got charts and graphs. He's got all the policy tabs. In essence, here's how he sums it up. Over the course of 4 budget proposals, Donald Trump attempted to cut almost $200 million from HBCUs and PBIs. I believe that would stand for primarily black institutions, right? In spite of his attempts each year, Congress increased HBCU and PBI funding, not Trump, giving him credit for the work of Congress that remedied what he tried to harm is wrong. It's like giving Pontius Pilate credit for the resurrection when he was the one who ordered Jesus to be crucified. The fact that HBCU funding increased while Trump was president has nothing to do with him because he never asked for the funding to be increased. Walter Kimbrough writes, in fact, he sought decreases all 4 years. Show notes and more past episodes, you can catch them all at ronshowatl.com. Thank you for listening. President Joe Biden in Atlanta over the weekend to meet with voters. Mary Mac's, he had a little gathering at Mary Mac's where he met with some voters among them. It's good to see Mary Mac's is open again, by the way. But it also open in Little 5 Points, the Porter. Good to have the Porter open again. I had a couple of pints yesterday with some buddies of mine after a long, hot day on the softball fields. All right, so anyway, President Biden's commencement at Morehouse. We have it. Let's give that to you in its entirety. Morehouse President David Thompson.
Now I have the honor of introducing our commencement speaker. We are honored to welcome the 46th President of the United States, the Honorable Joseph R. Biden, Jr., as our commencement speaker this morning. They say that when you find a job that you love, it isn't work at all. That can be said for Joseph Biden Jr., who has spent his entire life in public service. His career began in 1970 in his hometown of Delaware, when he was elected to the Newcastle County Council, a post he sought just after graduating from Syracuse Law School. 2 years later, at 29, Biden was one of the youngest people ever elected to the U.S. Senate, where he remained for 36 years. During that time, he served 16 years as chairman, a ranking member of the Senate Judiciary Committee, and while there is much debate in the news about U.S. foreign relations, President Biden served as chairman or ranking member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee for 12 years, where he was at the forefront of the fight against terrorism and weapons of mass destruction. In a speech just a few years ago, President Biden reminded us of the responsibility of the U.S. as the oldest and largest democracy on earth. He said, and I paraphrase, "America is an idea stronger than any army, bigger than any ocean, more powerful than any dictator or tyrant. It gives hope to the most desperate people on earth, guaranteeing that everyone is treated with dignity." Those words are a reminder of our role in the world, spoken by a man who has lived the standard. In 2008, Joseph R. Biden made history once again, this time as vice president to the country's first black president, Barack Obama. Together, President Obama and Vice President Biden changed the way Americans experience health care through the Affordable Care Act. Reducing the number of uninsured Americans by 20 million people by the time they left office. When the country was hit by a crippling and deadly pandemic, it was President Biden who steered the country to recovery. He was elected the 46th President of the United States in 2020 and sworn in office in January of 2021. Since then, he has remained steadfast in what he calls the fight for the soul of our nation. With the American Recovery Act, bipartisan infrastructure law, he has put Americans on the track to prosperity while also fixing the nation's crumbling roads, bridges, and rails. I'm almost done. It is a once in a generation investment in our nation that is putting millions of Americans to work. I'll conclude my introduction by calling attention to the fact that no administration in history since the inception of historically black colleges and universities has invested more in our institutions than the Biden administration has. And if we look at his policies, it is very clear that those investments are not charity, but represent a clear view of the value and excellence that is embodied in these institutions. President Biden is here today at historic Morehouse on these sacred grounds to share in this special day. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the podium the 46th President of the United States, Joseph R. Biden.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. President Thomas, faculty, staff, alumni, and a special thanks. I'll ask all the folks who helped you get here, your mothers, fathers, grandmothers, grandfathers, all those who got you here, all the way in the back. Please, parents, grandparents, all will help. Stand up, because we owe you a debt of gratitude. To all the families. And that is not hyperbole. A lot of you, like my family, had to make significant sacrifices to get your kids to school. It mattered. It's mattered a lot. And the friends of Morehouse and the Morehouse men of the class of 2024, I got more Morehouse men in the White House telling me what to do than I know what to do. You all think I'm kidding, don't you? You know I'm not. And it's the best thing that's happened to me. Scripture says, the prayers of a righteous man availeth much. In Augusta, Georgia, a righteous man, once enslaved, set foot for freedom. The story goes, he feared no evil. He walked through the valley of the shadow of death on his way north to free soil in Philadelphia. A Baptist minister, he walked with faith in his soul, power in the steps of his feet to glory. But after the Union won the war, he knew his prayers availed him freedom that was not his alone. And so this righteous man, Richard Coulter, returned home, his feet weary, his spirit in no ways tired. 157 years ago, you all know the story, but the rest of the world doesn't and should. In the basement of a Baptist church in Augusta, he and two other ministers, William Jefferson White and Edmund Turney, planted the seeds of something revolutionary. And it was at the time. A school to help formerly enslaved men enter the ministry, where education would be the great equalizer from slavery to freedom, an institution of higher learning that would become Morehouse College. I don't know any other college in America that has that tradition, that consequence. So the class of 2024, you join, as you know, a sacred tradition. And education makes you free, and Morehouse education makes you fearless. I mean it. Visionary, exceptional. Congratulations, you are Morehouse men. God love you. And again, I thank your families and your friends who helped you get here, because they made sacrifices for you as well. This graduation day is a day for generations, a day of joy, a day earned, not given. We gather on this Sunday morning because if we're in church, perhaps it would be this reflection. It would be a reflection about resurrection and redemption. Remember, Jesus was buried on Friday, and it was Sunday. On Sunday, he rose again. But we don't talk enough about Saturday, when his disciples felt all hope was lost. In our lives, in the lives of the nation, we have those Saturdays to bear witness the day before glory, seeing people's pain and not looking away. But what work is done on Saturday to move pain to purpose? How can faith get a man, get a nation through what was to come? Here's what my faith has taught me. I was the first Biden to ever graduate from college, taking out loans, my dad and all through school, to get me there. My junior year, spring break, I fell in love at first sight, literally, with a woman I adored. I graduated from law school in her hometown. I got married and took a job at a law firm in my hometown, Wilmington, Delaware. But then everything changed. One of my heroes, and he was my hero, a Baptist minister, a Morehouse man, Dr. Martin Luther King. In April of my law school graduation year, he was murdered. My city of Wilmington, and we were, to our great shame, a slave state, and we were segregated. Delaware erupted into flames when he was assassinated, literally. We're the only city in America where the National Guard patrolled every street corner for 9 full months with drawn bayonets, the longest stretch of any American city since the Civil War. Dr. King's legacy had a profound impact on me and my generation, whether you're black or white. I left the fancy law firm I had just joined and decided to become a public defender, and then a county councilman working to change our state's politics to embrace the cause of civil rights. The Democratic Party in Delaware was a Southern Democratic Party at the time. We wanted to change it to become a Northeastern Democratic Party. Then we were trying to get someone to run for the United States Senate the year Nixon ran. I was 29 years of age. I had no notion of running. I loved reading about everybody knew I was going to run. I didn't know I was going to run. When a group of senior members of the Democratic Party came to me, they couldn't find anybody to run, and said, "You should run." Nixon won my state by 60% of the vote. We won by 3,100 votes. We won by the thinnest of margins. But with a broad coalition, including students from the best HBCU in America, Delaware State University. You guys are good, but they got me elected. Y'all think I'm kidding. I'm not kidding. But by Christmas, I was a newly elected senator hiring staff in Washington, D.C., when I got a call from the first responders, my fire department in my hometown, that forever altered my life. They put a young woman, first responder, on the line to say, "There's an automobile accident. Tractor trailer hit your wife's car while she was Christmas shopping with her 3 children." And she, poor woman, she just blurted out, she said, "Your wife and daughter are killed. My 13-year-old daughter are dead. And your almost 3-year-old and 4-year-old sons are badly injured. We're not sure they're going to make it either." I rushed from Washington to the bedside. I wanted to pray, but I was so angry. I was angry at God. I was angry at the world. I had the same pain 43 years later when that 4-year-old boy who survived was a grown man and a father himself, lying in another hospital bed at Walter Reed Hospital, having contracted stage 4 glioblastoma because he was a year in Iraq as a major, won the Bronze Star, living next to a burn pit. Cancer took his last breath. In this walk of life, you can understand, you come to understand, that we don't know where or what fate will bring you, or when. We also know we don't walk alone. When you've been a beneficiary of the compassion of your family, your friends, even strangers, you know how much the compassion matters. I've learned there is no easy optimism, but by faith, we can find redemption. I was a single father for 5 years. No man deserves one great love, let alone 2. My youngest brother was a hell of an athlete, did a great thing. He introduced me to a classmate of his. Said, "You'll love her. She doesn't like politics." But all kidding aside, until I met Jill, who healed the family and all the broken places. Our family became my redemption. Many of you have gone through similar or worse and even worse things. But you lean on others. They lean on you. And together you keep the faith in a better day tomorrow. But it's not easy. I know 4 years ago, as some of your speakers have already mentioned, it felt like one of those Saturdays. The pandemic robbed you of so much. Some of you lost loved ones, mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, who aren't able to be here to celebrate with you today. You missed your high school graduation. You started college just as George Floyd was murdered. And there was a reckoning on race. It's natural to wonder democracy you hear about actually works for you. What is democracy? If black men are being killed in the street, what is democracy? The trail of broken promises still leave black communities behind. What is democracy? You have to be 10 times better than anyone else to get a fair shot. And most of all, what does it mean, as we've heard before, to be a black man who loves his country, even if it doesn't love him back in equal measure? When I sit behind the Resolute desk in the Oval Office, in front of the fireplace across from my desk, I have two busts, one of Dr. King, one of Bobby Kennedy. I often find myself looking at those busts, making decisions. Ask myself, are we living up to what we say we are as a nation? To end racism and poverty? To deliver jobs and justice, to restore our leadership in the world? I look down and see the rose around my wrist that was that of my late son he had on him when he died at Walter Reed, and I was with him. I asked myself, what would he say? I know the answer because he told me in his last days. My son knew the days were numbered. The last conversation was, Dad, I'm not afraid, but I'm worried. I'm worried you're going to give up when I go. You're going to give up. We have an expression in the Biden family. When you want someone to know, give your word, you say, look at me. He was lying to me, he said, look at me, Dad. Look at me. He said, give me your word. Give me your word as my father, that you will not quit, that you will stay engaged. Promise me, Dad. Stay engaged. Promise me. Promise me. I wrote a book called Promise Me, Dad, not for the public at large, although a lot of people will end up buying it. It's for my grandchildren and great-grandchildren to know who Beau Biden was. The rose around my wrist, the bust in my office remind me that. Faith asks you to hold on to hope, to move heaven and earth, to make better days. Well, that's my commitment to you, to show you democracy, democracy, democracy is still the way. If black men are being killed in the street, we bear witness. For me, that means to call out the poison of white supremacy, to root out systemic racism. I stood up for George Floyd's family to help create a country. We don't need to have that talk with your son or grandson as they get pulled over. Instead of a trail of broken promises, we're investing more money than ever in black families and black communities. We're reconnecting black neighborhoods cut off by old highways and decades of disinvestment when no one cared about the community. We've delivered checks in pockets to reduce black child poverty, the lowest rate in history. Removing every lead pipe in America so every child can drink clean water without fear of brain damage and can't afford to remove the lead pipes themselves. We're delivering affordable high-speed internet so no child has to sit in a parent's car or do their homework in a parking lot outside of McDonald's. Instead of forcing you to prove you're 10 times better, we're breaking down doors so you have 100 times more opportunities. Good paying jobs you can raise a family on in your neighborhood. Capital to start small business and loans to buy homes. Health insurance, prescription drugs, housing that's more affordable and accessible. I've walked the picket line and defended the rights of workers. I'm relieving the burden of student debt. Many of you have already had the benefit of it, so I can chase your dreams and grow the economy. When the Supreme Court told me I couldn't, I found two other ways to do it. And we are able to do it because it grows the economy. And I, in addition to the original $7 billion investment in HBCUs, I'm investing $16 billion more in our history. because you're vital to our nation. Most HBCUs don't have the endowments. The jobs of the future require sophisticated laboratories, sophisticated opportunities on campus. We're opening doors so you can walk into a life of generational wealth, to be providers and leaders for your families and communities. Today, record numbers of Black Americans have jobs, health insurance, and more than ever. Democracy is also about hearing and heeding your generation's call to a community free of gun violence and a planet free of climate crisis, and showing your power to change the world.
Home stretch of the show for Monday. Show notes, of course, from today, past episodes as well. You can get them all at ronshowatl.com. So we're in the home stretch. President Joseph R. Biden giving his commencement address at Morehouse over the weekend, and we pick right up where we left off.
Some of you ask, what is democracy? We can't stop wars that break out and break our hearts. In a democracy, we debate and dissent about America's role in the world. I want to say this very clearly. I support peaceful, nonviolent protest. Your voices should be heard, and I promise you I hear them. I determined to make my administration look like America. I have more African Americans in high places, including on the court, than any president in American history, because I need the input. What's happening in Gaza and Israel is heartbreaking. Hamas's vicious attack on Israel, killing innocent lives and holding people hostage. I was there 9 days after. Sent pictures of tying a mother and a daughter in a rope, pouring kerosene on them, burning them, and watching as they died. Innocent Palestinians caught in the middle of all this. Men, women, and children killed or displaced in desperate need of water, food, and medicine. It's a humanitarian crisis in Gaza. That's why I've called for an immediate ceasefire. An immediate ceasefire to stop the fighting. Bring the hostages home. And I've been working on a deal as we speak, working around the clock to lead an international effort to get more aid into Gaza, rebuild Gaza. I'm also working around the clock for more than just one ceasefire. I'm working to bring the region together. I'm working to build a lasting, durable peace. Because the question is, and you see what's going on in Israel today, what after? What after Hamas? What happens then? What happens in Gaza? What rights do the Palestinian people have? I'm working to make sure we finally get a two-state solution, the only solution, for two people to live in peace, security, and dignity. This is one of the hardest, most complicated problems in the world, and there's nothing easy about it. I know it angers and frustrates many of you, including my family. But most of all, I know it breaks your heart. It breaks mine as well. Leadership is about fighting through the most intractable problems. It's about challenging anger, frustration, and heartbreak to find a solution. It's about doing what you believe is right, even when it's hard and lonely. You're all future leaders, every one of you graduating today. And that's not hyperbole. You're future leaders, all of you. You'll face complicated, tough moments. In these moments, you listen to others, but you'll have to decide, guided by knowledge, conviction, principle, and your own moral compass. The desire to know what freedom is, what it can be, is the heart and soul of why this college was founded in the first place. Proving that a free nation is born in the hearts of men, spellbound by freedom. That's the magic of Morehouse. That's the magic of America. But let's be clear. What happens to you and your family when old ghosts in new garments seize power? Extremists come for the freedoms you thought belonged to you and everyone. Today in Georgia, they won't allow water to be available to you while you wait in line to vote in an election. What in the hell is that all about? I'm serious. Think about it. And then the constant attacks on black election workers, who count your vote. Insurrectionists who storm the Capitol with Confederate flags are called patriots by some. Not in my house. Black police officers, black veterans protecting the Capitol were called another word, as you recall. They also say out loud, these other groups, immigrants poison the blood of our country. Like the grand wizard and fascists said in the past. But you know and I know, we all bleed the same color. In America, we're all created equal. Extremists close the doors of opportunity, strike down affirmative action, attack the values of diversity, equality, and inclusion. I never thought when I was graduating in 1968, as your honoree just was, we talked about, I never thought I'd be a president at a time when there's a national effort to ban books. Not to write history, but to erase history. They don't see you in the future of America, but they're wrong. To me, we make history, not erase it. We know black history is American history. Many of you graduates don't know me, but check my record. You know what I'm saying. I mean from my gut. We know black men are going to help us lead us to the future. Black men from this class in this university. But graduates, this is what we're up against. Extremist forces aligned against the meaning and message of Morehouse. And they peddle a fiction, a caricature, what being a man is about. Tough talk, abusing power, bigotry. Their idea of being a man is toxic. I ran them all the time when I was younger. I want to get started. But that's not you. It's not us. You all know and demonstrate what it really means to be a man. Being a man is about strength, of respect and dignity. It's about showing up, because it's too late if you have to ask. It's about giving hate no safe harbor and leaving no one behind and defending freedoms. It's about standing up to the abuse of power, whether physical, economic, or psychological. It's about knowing faith without works is dead. Look, you're doing the work. Today I look out at all you graduates and I see the next generation of Morehouse men. We're doctors and researchers curing cancer, artists shaping our culture, fearless journalists and intellectuals challenging convention. I see preachers and advocates who might even join another Morehouse man in the United States Senate. You can clap for him, he's a good man. As I said, I'm proud to have the most diverse administration in history, to tap into the full talents of our nation. I'm also proud of putting the first black woman on the United States Supreme Court. And I have no doubt one day a Morehouse man will be on that court as well. Oh, you know it. I've been vice president of the first black president and become my close friend, and president to the first woman vice president. Well, I have no idea, no doubt, that a Morehouse man will be president one day, just after an AKA from Howard.
A little nod to Kamala.
She's tough, guys. Look, let me close with this. I know I don't look like I've been around very long. But in my career, for the first 30 years, I was told, "You're too young, kid." It used to stop me from getting on the Senate elevator when I first got there, for real. Now, I'm too old. Whether you're young or old, I know it endures. The strength and wisdom of faith endures. And my hope for you is, my challenge to you is, that you still keep the faith so long as you can. That cap on your head proves you've earned your crown. The question is now, 25 years from now, 50 years from now, when you're asked to stand and address the next generation of Morehouse men, what will you say you did with that power you've earned? What will you say you've done for your family, for your community, your country, when it mattered most? I know what we can do. Together we're capable of building a democracy worthy of our dreams. A future where even more your brothers and sisters can follow their dreams. A boundless future where your legacies lift us up to show those who follow. A bigger, brighter future that proves the American dream is big enough for everyone to succeed. Class of 2024, 4 years ago it felt probably like Saturday. 4 years later you made it to Sunday, to commencement, to the beginning. And with faith and determination, you can push the sun above the horizon once more. You can reveal the light of hope, and I'm not kidding, for yourself and for your nation. The prayers of a righteous man availeth much. A righteous man, a good man, a Morehouse man. God bless you all. We're expecting a lot from you. Thank you.
President Joe Biden's commencement address at Morehouse College over the weekend in Atlanta. You can hear it in its entirety on demand at progressivevoices.com and via podcast. Getting to hear the speech in its entirety, literally this morning as I'm putting the show together, I thought he struck a mostly positive tone and struck all the right notes, specifically for the audience, but also for those who may be eavesdropping to listen to how he addressed the Israel-Gaza conflict. From the Atlanta Journal-Constitution this morning, although there were no embarrassing scenes of mass disruptions during the graduation ceremony, and we didn't hear any either, there were quieter symbols of protest throughout the event. As Biden spoke, Assistant Professor Tara Taylor turned her back to the president while raising her right hand in a fist. A few students in one row sat with their backs to Biden while holding a Palestinian flag. While alumni rose to give Biden a standing ovation, students notably stayed in their seats, and the crowd roared after the valedictorian, D'Angelo Jeremiah Fletcher, said it was, quote, "My stance as a Morehouse man, as a human being, to call for an immediate and permanent ceasefire." The article continuing, outside the strict security measures surrounding the gated campus, more than 100 protesters marched to Morehouse, some waving signs reading Genocide Joe and chants demanding a ceasefire. Among the demonstrators who marched from West End Park to the Atlanta University Center was Daxton Pettis, a junior at Morehouse, who said he felt he was standing up for what is right. "I made a commitment, a personal commitment to be on the right side of history and to be an active agent. This is the home of Martin Luther King, and we're inviting a war criminal to come to speak to students, even though he is the president," Pettis said. Further down in the article, some expressed excitement over Biden's visit, noting the rarity of a president speaking at a historically black college, a part of the higher education system long neglected by political leaders. There were chants of 4 more years as he received an honorary degree. "I'm actually very glad that President Biden is coming to Morehouse," Braxton Brody, a student, told the Politically Georgia podcast. "Regardless of whoever's political belief, I think that the attention that a sitting president brings to campus is a great bargaining chip." All right, we will throw that into the show notes at ronshowatl.com. Thank you for listening. The Ron Show airs weekdays, 9 to 10 a.m., replay 5 to 6 p.m. on the American One Radio app, AmericanOneRadio.com, on demand at ProgressiveVoices.com, and, of course, wherever you podcast. Have a great day.